this. Okay, and I hope what you've got is, okay, let's go to the library. So what we're going to do is learn to use the library to find high quality resources. So this is the entry page. Everybody should be seeing it now, to the UCW library. The place you want to go is this one down here, Advanced Search, which generates this screen. This screen should be your friend. It's just an unbelievable access tool to high quality materials. You do not want to use Google Scholar. Okay? Not that you should never use it, but that should never be your starting place. Always start with the university's website. It's just more reliable and the material is more accessible. So this is the place to start. So what do we do? Okay, the question is, well, what are you looking for? The next assignment that you've got as an individual, you're going to have to find some academic articles related to the stakeholders of your company. So the team is selecting a company to look at, a company with a problem. Your job is to mind map the stakeholders and then do some research on one or more, well, essentially just one of the stakeholders, or some aspect of the stakeholders. And then you're going to have to do that by finding good quality academic articles, 2 of them. So this is how you find a good quality academic article. You start here in this search field and you put in some search terms. I'm going to arbitrarily use some search terms and we'll see where we get. Let's start off with news media. They're a stakeholder. Oh, I've got some people who want in still. Hang on. There we go. Okay, so news media are always a stakeholder. They may not be identified because they're only really a stakeholder when things go wrong. Otherwise, they don't care and they have no interest in you. But as soon as something goes wrong, you've got a problem, they're a stakeholder. So we want to find some good academic articles on the news media. So let's use them as the subject term. And we search. And we see what happens. And it's giving us for both news and media. And it gives us 6,426. Okay, that's too many. Far too many. So let's look down here for our limiters. Note here, peer reviewed. This is critical. You want to make sure that that is selected. Peer reviewed. Why? What does peer reviewed mean? It's not a perfect test, and we're down to 2,700, so that's a great limiter. But what peer-reviewed tells you is that somebody, scholars, have looked at the material before it was published. That's the whole point of peer review, is it doesn't get published because I'm a scholar and I think this is good work. No, it says I'm a scholar and I think this is good work, and some of my peers, other academics, have read through my work, tried their best to pick it apart, see the problems in it, and they have agreed that, yes, this is good work and it's worth publishing. Okay, so you always want peer reviewed. For good academic quality, it must be peer reviewed, which creates a really interesting set of dynamics because peer review does not intrinsically mean that it's high quality. Does not mean that there aren't high quality materials that are not peer reviewed. So for example, I have an article sitting on ResearchGate that has not been peer reviewed. I think it is very high quality, but I don't think it's done yet. So I haven't submitted it to any journal for publication. I will, but I'm not ready to do that yet. I'm letting it sit. I'm letting other scholars look at it. I've had some really interesting feedback from one of the key scholars in the field. Very, very helpful. In fact, I'm following up on it. I think I've got an answer for him, and I need to modify the article to include that answer. So it's like, I think it's high quality. There are scholars who are reading it. Is it peer reviewed? No, it's not. So it is not something that you would call upon as a high quality academic source. It might be a high quality academic source. You might want to use it if you were writing a paper on explorations in the field of whatever, and then look at all the stuff in ResearchGate that is being published there by authors who are working in that area. That is, it's cutting edge, it's their initial posting, it's not yet peer reviewed. Doesn't mean it won't be, and doesn't mean it's not high quality. It just means that you cannot say with certainty that it is of high academic quality. I've had materials peer reviewed and rejected. That hurts. I've had materials that were peer reviewed by one journal and rejected and accepted by a different one. Now that's interesting. Why would it be accepted by another journal? Well, it just so happens that the editor of that other journal is an acquaintance of mine who really likes my work and is going to make sure it's going to pass peer review. Whereas the journal that rejected it, well, no, they came at it from a completely different point of view and thought, nah, this is, no. So it's like, what is a high academic quality? Note that it was an acquaintance of mine who's the editor of the journal that led to the publication. Does that mean that the article was or was not truly high academic quality? And the answer is, well, I think it was high academic quality. He thought it was. His peer reviewers thought it was. So therefore it is, but it might not be. That is, we might all care too much about the material. So peer review is not a perfect descriptor of high academic quality. Plus, there are things that get past peer review that are wrong. That is, the peer reviewers didn't know enough. I have peer reviewed material. I can review many things about material, but if it's a statistical analysis, I'm not competent. I can review the way they've worked with it in terms of their conclusions, but I cannot analyze the methodology. I'm not competent. So I might be asked to review it, and I can't tell if they've faked their data, done their calculations correctly. I don't know. It will pass my peer review because it's logical, thoughtful, has read the research material in the field correctly. The research is interesting. It's been applied in a thoughtful manner. But it could be wrong because I can't check everything. So you will find, though, that, and this is what's interesting, the peer reviewing process doesn't even stop with publication. There are other scholars who will go out there and review your data who know what's going on. And you can end up finding, oh, we've got somebody else wants in here, hang on. And you can end up finding that material that was peer reviewed and approved for publication has been withdrawn from publication. That happens to be true for some of my favorite material on leadership. This is really disturbing for me. There's a whole field of leadership research called authentic leadership. Now, there's lots about authentic leadership that I think is just terrible, but their research has been stunning, really incredible research that I think is sound. They've been asking the right questions and doing the right research. Well, unfortunately, it turns out, no, they haven't. One of their researchers is faking the data. Skewing the data so that it would support the case. That means that data, the authentic leadership researchers, all their material is now suspect. A bunch of it has been withdrawn from publication. The same researcher faked the data for a number of their, so it's like 5 or 6 core authors working together on this really smart team, but one of their team members was faking the data. So the articles have been withdrawn from publication. You can still find them. But they're not academically of high quality. Now, as MBA students, you would not be expected to know that. That is, as a PhD working in the field, I'm expected to know that. So I know that because I follow them. But even if you're a scholar of leadership and you don't follow them, then you might not know that their research has been withdrawn. It's a tricky world out there. But regardless, you want to start with peer review. You always want that tick box clicked. Even though it is not a guarantee of high academic quality, it is the first step to assessing high academic quality. Okay, so we are now at 2,787 peer-reviewed papers on news and media. Okay. Note the date here, 1851. We want recent. Why recent? this is an interesting issue. We're going to go right up there to, there we go. So last 10 years and see what we get. And we're down to, what does it say? 794. So we've really reduced our pile that we have to look at just by it. Here's the thing. Does it mean that it's the best material if it's written in the last 10 years? And the answer is no, it doesn't. But we hope in scholarship that the quality keeps improving as the years go by. That is, we build on old research, we discard old ideas, we discard poor quality research, we build on the best and keep on building, so that ideally the most recent is the best we have. No guarantee. There's some older scholarship that is just brilliant, brilliant work that has transformed the field. Okay, it's not going to go show up in this. So it was done in the 1970s, and it might have been a really interesting piece of research. It's not going to show up in this search. But if you're working at the topic and it's a classic article, the likelihood it's going to be listed in the references for one of these recent articles. And that's your way of finding out what are the high quality older articles. So you don't have to go searching through all of the old stuff. The good old stuff tends to be kept, and the bad old stuff tends to be discarded. Just look in that list of references. So, and you also want to know what's happening in contemporary scholarship, and 10 years is contemporary scholarship. It takes about 5 years, easily takes 5 years from initial research to publication. So anything published is at least 2 and quite possibly 5 years old, maybe even more than that. And then again, so now you're looking at material that has been written, developed sometime, okay, published in the last 10 years would mean written sometime in the last 15. And that's recent for scholarship. Academic scholarship flows slowly. It does not move along at a high speed. Okay, so now, another couple of limiters here. We want available at the UCW library. The UCW library is a database of lots of material, not everything, but we want things that are available in the UCW library because that's the easiest material to work with. And you don't want to spend time trying to track things down. However, I will say this, for your MBA project, it is really helpful to have a friend at SFU or UBC so you can search down all those really interesting articles in their journal collections and get somebody to get it for you. UCW has difficulty getting those rare articles that are really important, that are published in journals that the UCW does not have access to. So you want a friend at UBC or SFU. They have extraordinary collections. They're just beautiful collections. They're very expensive though. They are giant universities. They're global leading universities. They have to have that quality of library to support that. And they do. So you want to have friends at those schools who can get you those journal articles or access to those books. Because you can't as a UCW student, you can as an SFU or UBC student. So cultivate those folk and make sure that they can get you those projects. But for the ordinary project, no, you don't need that. You can get good enough materials from the UCW lab. There's lots of very high quality material there. So for the most part, don't worry about it. Certainly for my course, don't go elsewhere. That would be ridiculous. In fact, my argument is you should never spend more than 20 minutes looking for articles. Really, and I mean that most seriously, 20 minutes, that's all. We're going to spend a lot of time this morning, but that's not because I think it's a good idea. Okay, so we have here 794 articles. Do you want to read through 794 articles looking for the best ones? The answer is no. So let's look for something else. What would be another term that we could add to, again, confine it? Well, we could add a term there, or we can go down here, source types, academic journals. Okay, that'll reduce us some. Okay, there we go. And then subject, we could reduce social, what is most interesting to us. I want it smaller than this. And I don't actually like these subjects. These are just ones that they have thrown up, but it doesn't mean those are the limiters you want. In fact, I want another one because I'm dealing with business. I want to know what news media says about business, how it does that. Business. I have to spell it correctly. And I'm going to use that as a subject term. And what do we get? 29. Okay, so this is much more reasonable. We're down to 29 articles to review. What I've noticed, this is, you can usually find an article that's full text from Eric, but this is one that is even better because you can download it just instantly. You don't have to go searching around. Eric is sometimes not available. It's a little bit of a problem. Theoretically, you've got access. In fact, you probably have access. But if it shows up as PDF full text, you now have access to the article right there. So that is the best source. I'd like to reduce this though further. I'd like to get my search group down to maybe 6 to 10 articles. So let's go down here to what are our limiters again? How many did it say? 29. Business structures, journalism, business entities, business models, communication, mass media. I'm actually more interested in the business environment. That is news media as part of the business environment. So I am going to change that to business environment and see what I get. Nothing. Okay. Let's change this then to alt text. What do I get? What I did is I changed it from a subject term, which is very specific, to something I can find in the text itself. Oh, look at this. I'm down to 4. Perfect. Now, they may not be the articles I want. I'm an MBA student, though. Efficiency is my goal. Everything should be thought of in terms of efficiency. So my goal now is not to determine if this is the perfect article for what I want to study. It's simply, is it high quality academic source, period. That's the only criteria next. Because if it is of high academic quality, I plan to use it. This is a really important issue for MBA students to start thinking about. As undergraduates, you're always looking for topical material. As a scholar, which is what you are now, as a scholar, you're looking for what are people thinking? Not topical. That is, you want to know what the scholarship is thinking. So you just want good scholarship. That is it. You will figure out how to work with that scholarship on the basis that it is good quality scholarship, not on the basis that it fits your topic. This is a really important point. Topical thinking, out. Academic quality, that is the point. You want high academic quality. The rest, who cares? I'll show you how to do it. So here we go. We've got 4 articles. Let's pick one. We want the best one we can find here. Okay, we don't want a book review. Media Democracy Monitor, I don't really care. Okay, well, hyper-local business ecosystem. Oh, that sounds interesting. So now so this looks like an interesting paper. It's in an academic journal, it says, and it might be wrong, but we'll see. I just want to check this one. Nordic Review, I don't know. Okay, and we're going to go look at this. So next thing we do is we click here on that title, and it'll pop up this screen that will tell us a lot of information that will help us. We want to decide right now, is this high quality academic article? We know it's peer reviewed. That's tick box 1. But what about the author affiliation? Okay, we hear the authors. Let's see who they're affiliated with. University of Central Lancashire, United Kingdom, University of Applied Sciences, Utrecht, the Netherlands. Oh, this sounds good. That means we're dealing with university professors or doctoral students. Okay. Those are the folk who typically get published. doctoral students or university professors. But it could be it's somebody from this person. It could be Media Innovation Studio Incorporated. That is, this is a person who works in a business. And that might be a perfectly fine person. The issue, though, is that if they're not working in an academic environment, it's easy to lose your academic edge. It might not be as good, but it might be superb. I have read superb stuff written by business consultants who have PhDs. I mean, they've done their work. They know how to write. They're doing interesting analysis. It's good stuff. So the fact that they're university people is a good thing, but it does not ensure that it's high academic quality. It's just one of those things you look for. And then you have to remember, universities also have terrible profs, people who can't think well. That is, they got their job on the basis of other things. So the fact that these are university affiliated does not mean that they are good scholars. It's another tick box. Okay, so we know that they're affiliated with universities. That's a good thing. Nordicom Review. Okay, I don't know that journal. Supplement 2019, volume 40. Okay, volume 40 is good. Here's, you want higher volume numbers. Why? Because it means it's an older journal. There are journals popping up all the time. And in the last 20 years, there has been a new phenomena called the for-profit journal. That is, typical journals are run by universities or societies, research agencies. They're not for-profit. For-profit journals are a new thing. They are funded by the authors paying to have their materials published. They pay to have them peer-reviewed, and then the publisher, and then they pay to have them published. They are peer-reviewed, they are academic. But because the authors are paying to have the work done, there's a vested interest in publishing things. So the recent paid journals are seen as low quality. I mean, they may be academic, and the articles, in fact, might be good articles. That is, the fact that they're in a low quality journal does not mean it's a low quality article, but you get suspicious. Nordicom Review, I don't know who publishes it. Let's see if it's got publication data on it. Okay, well, okay, I'm going to do a little quick search, open link in new tab. Where did you go? Ugh, you're in behind. See if that will get it. Nope. Okay, I'm not getting anything. Okay, so I don't know about Nordicom Review as a journal in terms of its quality. All I know is it's older. It could be that they've distorted that, but usually it's one volume per year. So that means it started back in the 1980s or even 70s. Page length, it looks like, according to this, it's 19 pages. That's good length. Why is length relevant? And the answer is, if you're writing an academic article, it takes a minimum of about 8 pages to say anything. Anything. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're writing on, just to organize your material, get all the preliminaries out of the way, define your terms, explain your position in the field, develop a basic conclusion, 8 pages. To really say something significant, it usually takes 12, 15, 20, 25, 35, except journals hate publishing articles that are longer than about 25 pages. They will if it is brilliant and really important. But it just, what they prefer, if it's longer, break it in two and publish 2 shorter articles. Again, one of the problems being academics don't have the time to read a lot. An article that is 35 pages long is probably the core of a book. So why not just publish the book? And then we'll review it. So you want, but so that gives you a sense. 8 pages is the minimum to say anything. 10 pages is really the minimum. So don't look at anything shorter than 10 pages as high quality. It could be longer. This one is 19 pages. That's a good indication of a major article. People have done some solid work. If you're doing statistical analysis, it's hard to do statistical analysis in less than 20 pages. Simply going through your analysis of your data, your quantitative data, takes time, takes like 4 or 5, 6 pages. So if you put that in the context of everything else, yeah, you can do a good quantitative article in as little as 15. I've seen it done, but that's rare. You're generally looking at 20 pages or more. So that's 20 pages is really your target. 10 pages is the minimum, 20 is the target, knowing that anything shorter than 8 is just garbage. It just, yeah, maybe academic, but they're just outlining a point of view. They're not really developing a position. So what I'm looking at here, everything I've seen here tells me this looks like a good academic article. Is it? Well, we don't know yet. We keep looking. So now we look at the abstract. Excuse me. So the abstract. So let's all read the abstract. Take some time. I'll just see if I can push up the magnification a little bit. There we go. We'll push up. So take a look at that abstract. Okay, I don't know about you, but I like what I see. What am I looking for? I'm looking for things like empirical data. What's the sample size? What are the conclusions? And I'm a little, I think they should put a little bit more conclusion related material in this abstract, but otherwise this looks like a nice abstract that indicates a high quality article behind it. In particular, it's got quantitative data. I love quantitative data. It doesn't mean a qualitative argument isn't sound, but you typically learn more from a quantitative analysis. Even if you don't know your statistics very well, it does not matter. It gives you a good sense of what's going on in a way that a qualitative article can, but it's usually a qualitative article is a case study or a theory projection. Those can be interesting. I have no qualms. I love them, those too. But a quantitative article means that they've had to review the theory, think through the theory, find an application, develop an application, make some conclusions about an application. So as a business student who's interested in actual business operations, that is so helpful. That is, you're getting an example of an application of some sort, some level. Okay, if I'm thinking, now, I just want to comment here on a bit of a side issue. If I'm thinking topically about my business and my mind map, I probably don't like this abstract. That is, I'm going off topic. But I'm an efficient MBA student. It's going off topic. Do I care? No. All I care about at this point is high quality academic resource. And everything I see here says high quality academic resource. So I like this. Now, just last point here on the abstract is note this, abstract from author. There are two sources for abstracts. Either the authors write them or the editors write them. Editors typically do a better job, but it takes a lot of time. Writing an abstract is very hard work. So they usually require that the authors provide their own abstract. Okay. I don't know if you can see any problems with that, but I certainly can. If I am an author writing the abstract, I want to do two things. I want people to read the article. I want them to think I'm a good quality author. Of the two, I'm more concerned that they think that I'm a good quality author than that they actually read the article. Which means that I'm going to position the abstract in such a way that it is essentially a marketing tool for me and for my research. Does that mean it's an accurate indication of the article itself? The answer is no, it doesn't. It might be. This one looks pretty good, but it might not be. It's hard to do a good one. And if I'm the author, I might not want to do a good one because my results might be, the results of this study are inconclusive. I'm not sure it's really worth publishing, and I'm going to go back and rework this again and see about publishing some more material later. That might be the accurate truth, but that does not get any readers, and in fact would never get you published. So you have to present things as if you know what you're talking about and that it's really good material. You have to start there. So that's what abstract from author. So you prefer an abstract from an editor, but they're rare. So, okay, is this a good quality academic article? The answer is, as far as I can tell, yes. Everything I'm seeing here says yes. But is it a high quality academic article? I don't know yet. That is, notice what I'm doing here. I'm checking through things. More and more tick boxes are getting checked off. This looks good. You cannot tell if it's good quality until you review the article itself. So let's go review the article. And I want to talk about how do you review an article. Okay, there's the article. Published by this organization, whoever they are, and I do not know. Could be a for-profit publisher. There are some major ones like Oxford Press, Blackwell, anyway, you'll get to recognize them. Major journal publishing houses that publish high-quality journals. So those are things you look for as well. This, again, as I said, I don't know, but what I've seen so far suggests high quality. There's the abstract again. Okay, so what we're going to do is skim through the article. One of the vital skills of an MBA student is learning how not to read. That is, do not read articles. You do not start at the beginning and read your way through to the end. That is certain to confuse you, waste your time, not provide any really valuable knowledge. Your job as an MBA student is to move through a heck of a lot of material very quickly and distill the important points out of it. So how do you do that? The answer is you just flip pages. It's amazing how much your brain will pick up if you simply flip pages through something. You skim things, you look at section headers, you look at the introductory materials, you read the conclusion, absolutely. But do you read anything in between? I'll show you. The answer is maybe, maybe not. I'll also note that don't work with a dictionary at your side. I know for most of you, or many of you anyway, English is a second language. So you don't understand key words. The reality is you don't want to understand keywords. You just want to have them sit there. At this point, when you're doing your reading, you just want to skim through, and if you find a word you don't understand, you ignore it. You just move on. Yes, you're missing something. You're probably missing something significant, but it's okay to miss it. That is, you will pick up the general drift. Your English is good enough. You will pick up the general drift of the article and get a good sense of whether or not it's high quality without having to look up keywords. Now, should you find that the article is really interesting and you want to understand it better, on your second pass, yes, get your dictionary out and look up those keywords, but not on the first one. As much as possible, you want to get the sense of the material. You don't care about the specifics. But every so often, you're going to find an article or a chapter that you're going to say, oh, this is so interesting. I really want to understand it. Then, and only then, do you pick up your dictionary to understand keywords, because it's going to be slow. You're now reading slow. But initially, you want to read fast. You just want to get through the material with a kind of a feel for it. And that does not require a dictionary, not at the level that you're reading at already. Okay. So we're going to skim through. I don't even necessarily know these words. Or I've got a book here that's in French. I know basic French. It's an academic book. It's philosophy. One of these days I have to sit down and make my way through it. I'm just going to start doing what I do with every article I ever read. I just flip pages, trying to get a sense of what the author is up to with my limited French and my knowledge of the field, because ethics, it's a textbook on philosophical ethics, and that's one of my fields, I should be able to get the sense of the author's argument, even though it's in a language I really don't understand, using terminology that I genuinely do not understand without a dictionary. Actually, I tried to get my daughter to translate the book for me. She's fluent in French, very good French, but she wouldn't do it. I don't know why. Why would she not give up her hours to translate a book of philosophy for her father? I just don't know. What children are coming to these days, it's just, anyway, the world is falling apart. But she wouldn't do it. So anyway, I'm going to have to just make my way through it the best I can. Once I've figured out the basic argument, then if there are pieces that I really want to understand better, I'm going to get out a dictionary and do it carefully and really make sure I understand those pieces. But it's the second pass that gets the dictionary, not the first. And that's just one of those things. You just skim and skim and skim, and who cares about critical words? That's just going to slow you down. It's not going to add any information on your first pass. And if all goes well, that's your only pass. But every so often, you'll want to go back to the material. Which also reminds me, just a quick point, if you're going to read it, download it, because there's no guarantee you will ever find it again. And if you've read it, it may well come back as something you want to work on later. So every article I skim, I download, store it. I have hundreds, maybe thousands of articles stored on my computer. That's what you can do. You download the PDF, store it, and then you can go back to it. I might never go back to them. The hardest part, the part I hate about that, is organizing them. So they're all topically organized. But I can run a complete search based on author really easily across my computer, or topic. But sometimes I'm just going through looking for, who was it? And so by author and subject, I have them all organized, which I hate doing, but it's worth doing. You never want to go, I can't find it. I know I read it, I can't find it. It says exactly what I want, and I can't find it. And that happens. It just happens so frequently that you just want to make sure that if you read it, you've downloaded it. Okay, so here we go. We read the abstract. We're going to start skimming. How do we do this skimming to effectively understand if this is a high quality article? We start off by looking at the introduction. Okay, so we're going to quickly look at the introduction. Okay, so that's a good introduction. It's giving us the background. Note the identification of the sources. This is an important piece. Good authors refer to their sources. Now, there are only, I find, 2 in the introductory paragraph. That's okay. Oh, here we go. Now, scarcity, okay. So here you notice that as we're getting into it, and they're talking about their terms and their background, they've got lots of citations. That's important. It shows that they have done their research. And then they get, in fact, little is known about the economic experiences of hyperlocals. Okay, so that says, yeah, but this is all. They may have cited every piece of research available. That's unlikely, but it's possible because they're pioneering. These folk clearly are setting out to understand a field that other people have not looked at. Okay, background. So there's their theory. I love these sections. These are often the most valuable parts of a paper. That is, they're looking at the background theoretical perspective that they're working from. So they're reviewing, they're telling you who they review. If you're working in a field, you very quickly get to a sense of who they're working with. So I was doing some research. What was it? Social psychology, field of... Anyway, I can't remember what I was looking at. What I did note was that when I was reading the articles in the field, they ended up clustering into 3 based on who's being cited in their theory sections. That is, there were 3 theoretical perspectives being developed in the field, and they weren't citing each other. And it just irritated me to no end. Why would you not cite the other people in the field? just because their perspective is different. But that's how it happens. Once you're reading a lot in an area, you can start looking at these authors and you know who they are, not personally, but you know their research, you know their perspective, you know what school of thought they're reflecting. So this becomes a really key guide to what is the perspective these people are taking. Okay, so we're skimming through here though. This again suggests high quality academic article. Okay, they're talking about the background. Yep, the history. This is useful. Oh, this is a lovely article. Sorry, I shouldn't say that at this point, but it really looks like it's well thought out. It's logical. The construct seems to flow. And look, I'm not reading it. I've never seen this article before. I am not reading it. I'm just looking at the first line of each paragraph and just looking at the citations and looking for numbers. Okay. Oh, note that they're even describing the sample size that other people have been working with. That indicates the detail. Sample size is a really important number. If you look at my little guide to reading statistics at the top of the course webpage, just for this, sample size is one of those critical numbers. And a sample size of 34 is a significant sample size. A sample size of 340 would be stunningly good, but it's an enormous amount of work to accumulate a data pool of 340 interviews. That would be a lot of interviews to do. And it's astonishing how much. So I wrote a book, this goes years ago. I did interview research for it. I found that after 4 interviews, I was getting the same information back. That is, only took me 4 interviews and the people were beginning to give me the same answers. If I had done 15 interviews, really, I would have learned a little bit in that 15th interview that I hadn't got in the other 14, but not much. I stopped after, I think it was 4 or 5. I just realized, what's the point? I've got enough for a book. This is not a peer-reviewed book. I'm not writing journal articles, it's just a book. So I stopped with that because I was getting repeat information. So I know that I've got a really good understanding of the field. 34 survey interviews, the likelihood is that most of that material is going to be duplicated multiple times. And that's why you would go to 34. If you went to 340, you could do amazing statistical breakdowns, but how much new information would you have got between 34 and 340? And the answer is it probably wouldn't be worth the research work. I mean, the 340 is enormous. That's years of research work. Or you've got a massive research team, a giant grant to do it. So you wouldn't. 34 is about as much as a couple of scholars could manage. I mean, that's a lot of work to do that many interviews. So they're looking at 6 months of interviewing, maybe a year of interviewing, gathering the data for their article. So that tells you 34 is a significant number. That's an important number. If their number was 5 interviews, the answer is, I would want 5 interviews with leading people in the field. That is, it would be a select group that is likely to give me the best information. But 35 is better than 5. Then you know you are covering the field off pretty well. You should be getting lots of duplicate information. And that's what the goal is of the research. You want to be able to know that you have got the information. 35 will still, I mean, if you went to 60, you would, in those last, number 59 and number 60, there's a very good chance you would hear nothing new, not one thing you had not heard before. Okay, so this is good. Oh, look at it all. Okay, now they're going to their research method. Oh, okay, excellent. You want them to explain the background, research on business ecosystems. Oh, this is a lovely, I recommend, this is a good article. Sorry, I haven't finished it, but everything I see goes, these people have done their work. It is well thought out. Now here's their research method, conceptual framework, was present the business of 35, and they give you their range, their definitions, sample yep, got their understanding. I have cautions about this. I can see things that, as somebody who's does a lot of research, I see cautions in what they've defined, okay? But I wouldn't disagree with them. I might argue, if I were reviewing this, that the model of research model they're using should be broadened or rearranged a little. But this is not my field. Maybe it's the best that can be done. So, okay, now we've got a table. I love tables. Well, this is a beautiful table. So this is a table essentially of their definitions, what words they're using and what they mean. That's very useful, nice and clear, well presented. Makes it easy to understand what they're talking about. How they did it. Okay. Here's a basic summary of their research outcomes. It's looking at revenue, nice little chart. Okay. Okay, some qualitative data to go with their quantitative results and sustainability. Okay, nice tables. I love tables, just love them. And charts, graphs. Oh, they can be very misleading. I mean, all statistical analysis can be misleading. You need a reasonable grasp of how statistics are developed. I'll have to be right up front here. I'm not too bad at reading statistics. I'm not good at developing statistics. That's another skill set entirely. So I'm working on an article right now. It's statistical analysis. I have a colleague who has done all the raw statistical analysis. He gives me the numbers, and then I interpret the numbers. He does not know how to interpret the numbers. I do not know how to develop the numbers. He takes my data set and analyzes it and gives me relationships. I look at those numeric relationships and I draw conclusions about the relationship between the variables, how they're structured and what they mean. He couldn't do my part. I can't do his part. I can read them, but I can't develop them. He can develop them, but he doesn't know how to read them. There's just too much to know, too much to learn. So don't worry that you do not understand everything about the statistics. You don't need to. You just need to have a sense of what's going on. Basically, what's the sample size and what kind of level of significance are they finding? Again, okay. The model, description. Oh, this is lovely, lovely, lovely. Memberships in the nations, community events. This is how they're funded. Oh, beautiful, nice descriptions. So this is essentially a qualitative breakdown of quantitative analysis. This can be helpful. Conclusions. Okay, so we stop in conclusions. Sorry, I'm going to push that up a bit. Okay. And keep going with the conclusion. Yeah, so they found their terms. Okay. Lovely. The good descriptions of what it takes to be a hyperlocal media supplier. Oh, and you know what? And I'll show you, there's some really interesting stuff to apply to your case studies that you're going to be doing if you use this article. I'll tell you how to use it. Okay, I'm just skimming through the rest of the conclusion here. At the very end of the conclusion. Oh, I love this. Further research is needed. Who gains from what and to what end? Oh, that's good critical questions. So what they're essentially laying out is a study program that would follow up on their research. And that's a really nice thing to do. You don't have to do that. It's a great offer, though, to essentially to say to other researchers, get involved. There's some really interesting stuff here. Okay, so everything I've seen so far indicates high quality article. I've got one last thing to check, and that's the references. And now I'm just skimming through references. Come on, keep skimming. What's up? There we go. Okay, Lots. And oh, this is wonderful. Okay, so notice how many references there are. Pages. That is a good indication of high quality. It means they've done their research. In the background, they know where they're coming from. They're well positioned. It doesn't mean an article with only, say, 5 or 6 references is a bad article. But you just got to wonder, why only those few? The likelihood is if it's only got a half a dozen or so references, it's a theory article. In theory, then they're just picking off the key theory people and relating to them. And that's just fine. But for this kind of work, the quantitative analysis work, you want this long list of references that shows that they have really explored the field, they know the background, they've got the theory, they're comparing, they're building off of other people's knowledge in a very effective way. Okay, so my conclusion is this is a high quality academic article. So do you see what I've done? We started off with the detailed record. Well, we started off actually earlier than that. We had our list of peer-reviewed articles of the last 10 years. So we're drawing down, we're getting into our zone that we're looking for. Picked one that looked like it had an interesting title. We worked with it to explore all the characteristics of high quality academic articles, you know, the quality of the writing, the quality of the research, the author associations, you know, just carefully running through those pieces. Note, I did not refer to a citation index. I do not know how many times this article has been cited. I do not like citation indexes. I have the last exercise you did, the academic research one, had a trick question in it, or a trick article. That is, the single most cited article in that list was the least quality, lowest quality. That is, there is no relationship at all between article quality and the number of times it is cited. You can have absolutely stunningly good research that no one cites. And you can have garbage research that everyone cites. They shouldn't, but they do. Why? Well, it could be because the authors are important. It could be because it introduces some important ideas. It could be because it's very well written. A lot of academic articles are not well written. That is, they contain important information, but they're very hard to read. Who's going to cite an article that's hard to read? The answer is very few, because they didn't read it. They didn't want to read it. They started and they go, well, I don't know, whatever. And off they go. Even though it had good quality, it doesn't get cited. Easy to read stuff gets cited. Well, just in those terms, I'll just note Harvard Business Review is not an academic source. I don't care who tells you. It gets cited all the time, but it's not a peer-reviewed academic source. What Harvard Business Review does is they get the top quality authors to write summaries of their work. That's really useful, but it's not really citation quality. They get cited a lot. Harvard Business Review articles are some of the most heavily cited articles in all of academia. And for good reasons, in the sense that they're well written. They typically are summaries, and summaries are hard to find. But they're not peer reviewed. They represent the author's own perspective. They are closer to opinion pieces, thoughtful, intelligent opinion pieces, than they are to academic quality articles. So you should not be citing Harvard Business Review. Your professors are likely to use Harvard Business Review. I don't, but I don't care. I mean, I could. I mean, I have no real problems. It's just that if you are doing top quality academic research, you will not start, or we'll put it this way. You would start with Harvard Business Review just the way you would start using Wikipedia. That is, Wikipedia is not a credible academic source. Should you read it? Absolutely. The people who put together Wikipedia are committed volunteers. They do some interesting work, and they try hard to summarize a field effectively, and they argue with each other. It's really an interesting process. I actually pay to support Wikipedia. I would never cite Wikipedia, but I use it all the time as a beginning place for my research. That is, it's often very good grounding. Now, if I'm reading, but I'll just tell you this, Wikipedia articles in my area of expertise are often wrong, sometimes dead wrong. That is, they're citing old research, stuff that's been discredited, or it's stuff that people thought was good. I mean, the problem with Wikipedia is it's always working off of old material, old perspectives, and if there's new research, it doesn't necessarily get in, or if it's controversial research, it doesn't get in. And the controversial stuff might be the correct stuff. So again, you cannot cite Wikipedia. You cannot cite, though people do, Harvard Business Review. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use them. You should use them, but not as credible academic sources. As soon as somebody says, I want a credible academic source, you do not cite Harvard Business Review, just like you do not cite Wikipedia. Instead, you go digging around for this kind of article, which is harder to read, more obscure, but it's high quality academic material. That means you can trust it. You know these people have done their work, thought it through, and come up with the best thinking that they can. Does that mean it is the best thinking that there is? No. It's just the best that they could do, and it is as credible as we can get to. Okay. So I'm going to stop there. I've got some more stuff I want to talk about with this article, but I want to stop there and make sure that I have explained well how you find good quality academic work. Just the steps I want you to take are the steps I just took. Moving from the initial library, okay, can I? Sorry, I'm going to, so I don't like sharing the screen. It doesn't work perfectly in terms of doing what I want. So I'll just open it up. Questions. Anybody have questions then on what I've done? Are you following it? Do you see the difference between what I've done, how I've thought about what is being presented versus how students were assessing the academic quality of the articles in that list I gave you for the last exercise? So questions. Yes, Patricia.
Yes, Professor, I have a question about
just hang on. That's it. Patricia's first.
Oh, thank you. I have the same question for about the peer reviewed. I understand that if I put it the filter, I can find information with that. But if I already have the book and I want to check it is reviewed, where I can find it?
Okay, so you have it, the article in front of you.
Exactly.
And you're trying to decide, is it peer reviewed? It typically does not say this is peer reviewed. You have to go on the basis of what is the publication source? Is it a journal? Because if it's a journal, it probably is peer reviewed. So if it's the Journal of Business Ethics, that is a peer reviewed source. They would say the Center for Business Ethics Dialogue, okay, volume 16. Now that is probably not peer reviewed. When they use words like dialogue, what they usually mean is these are research reports. This is stuff we think is interesting and valuable, maybe written by scholars, but the word dialogue means we're looking for give and take. This is just preliminary points of view. Or if it's a university research papers, again, not peer reviewed. Reviewed, thoughtful, but the university, what's a typical name? Anyway, so you've got to be looking for things like that. Now, they may even show up as peer reviewed if you were doing a search for them through peer reviewed, because peer reviewing means a lot of different things. Full peer reviewed is what you want. If you have the University of London papers, research papers in economics, okay, volume 26. That means they do a conference every year on economics research. Those will all be papers that have at a certain level been peer reviewed. That is, they had to get through a peer review process in order to be presented. But it's not like the intensity of the Journal of Economics, the way they would peer review it, where 2 scholars would be assigned to review it in depth. So I present at a conference of the North American Academy of Religion. I present there every year. I present at other conferences, but I always do because it's just too much fun and I know the people. So every paper I write has to be pass a review process before it gets into the conference. That is, some scholars have to look at it, decide what's going on, and decide whether or not it should be presented. So that is a kind of peer review process, but it's not a thorough peer review that a good quality journal does. So that's what you really want, is that peer review tick box should be for journals that do a solid peer review. It's not perfect though. I mean, that's why I have you scan through the whole article before you know if it's high quality. Peer review is a starting place, a vital starting place, but it's not perfect. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. Nasser, you have a question.
Yes, in this article, we couldn't found any future scope of research. I think we can use that as a one thing about scoring this article, because I can't see any future scope.
Okay, so how would you want to score this in my system? You would score this at least a 9, maybe a 10. I'm not sure I would go as far as 10. I might. Certainly no less than 8. That is, it's got all the features I'm looking for. Does that mean that it is in fact that high a quality? The answer is no, it does not. There are aspects that you would want to check on and review, that if you were going to make a real, if you were going to say publish this as a review of this article, you would take it apart and you would say, well, there are these strengths and these weaknesses. I've done that. I am a peer reviewer. It's kind of fun. You don't want to be on the other side of a peer review that is being peer reviewed is essential. A peer reviewer, a good one, does a lot of work to analyze the strengths and weaknesses based on their expertise, and it should be expertise in the field. And they can just take your stuff apart in ways that you didn't even know. You didn't even know you were weak in those areas, and they found it because they're thinking carefully and they have background. So I would rate this as very high. That doesn't mean there aren't areas where you wouldn't want to improve it, but it's done a lot of work. I have some questions about their statistical analysis, how they approached it. But I mean, they didn't do any correlation analysis, but they weren't really trying to. This is a preliminary study that's opening up a new field of research. They look more like qualitative researchers rather than quantitative, and they've used data to support the quantitative data to support what is really a qualitative analysis. Okay, that's fine. That is completely acceptable. But I bet they could have, if they were true statisticians, they could have found more information in their material than they did. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Professor. I have another question as well.
Sure.
About citation, you mentioned you don't care about the citation, but we have one table that you mentioned, for example, how we can grade the article. One of them is citation. So I think that is a judgmental issue. How we can find this citation is valuable or not?
Yeah, well, the answer is citations are interesting, but by themselves tell you nothing. That's the problem. A very large citation number doesn't mean it's high quality, but it does mean that a lot of people are turning to that article for significant use. So that's interesting, that's significant. But you want to be very careful. If, you know, it's like people will cite Harvard Business Review. You know, that I go, I understand, but don't. You know, but because it's, again, it is not a peer-reviewed article, but it is by a good scholar. I mean, it's by reputable scholars are the people who write. But for example, one of the scholars they publish on a regular basis is Daniel Goleman with emotional intelligence. Goleman is a bright guy. I kind of like his thinking, but emotional intelligence is bunk. There's no support for it at all in any. Harvard Business Review regularly prints that stuff. Why? Because it's popular. And then it gets hugely cited and it builds a case that as if emotional intelligence is meaningful when it's not. So you cite Harvard Business Review on emotional intelligence as if it means something when in fact it does not. Whereas other scholars who who will write for Harvard Business Review are high quality scholars who've done extraordinary research, and it's really interesting to read their reviews. And citing that is worth citing. There's no question in my mind. But it's just not that Harvard Business Review in and of itself tells you it's a good thing, not the citation number. Goldman's stuff is cited all the time, but it's a matter of the blind leading the blind. Nobody has done good research on it, but everybody thinks it's true, and Harvard Business Review is not doing citation, it's not doing academic research, it's doing just what are people interested that sounds academic. Irritates me to no end. So it's like, you have to be careful, you have to think, you have to review. You cannot trust any one piece of information to tell you this is high quality. Not peer reviewed, not citations, not author affiliations, none of that stuff, not the quality of the journal. Nothing tells you in and of itself that it is high quality. You have to go to the article and try and understand it. And finally, you get a sense of whether or not it's high quality. It's like, I believe this article we've been reviewing is high quality. I could well be wrong. They could be faking things. They could have, lied, made up their data. They're just very astute. There are lots of cases of fraud, of articles that are published that are fraudulent. Now, it takes a very sophisticated scholar to put together a fraud, but it's done. It passes peer review. People cite it. People look at it. They read it. They think, wow, this is incredible. Sorry, somebody faked the data, lied, made it up, used words that sound interesting but are meaningless. It happens. So it's just that kind of problem. Nothing in itself tells you it is a high quality academic article. As a whole, this looks like a high quality academic article. So
Thank you.
Okay. So that's why I want you to do this stuff carefully, to think it through. Wait, Navneet, you've been waiting patiently.
Yes, Professor, if I am searching for an article like you had given systems approach to marketing by Adler.
Yeah.
I have searched it in the library section. And how would I come to know that this is peer reviewed or not?
Okay, well, what was it published in? So this is the question. Immediately check whoever published it. And it shouldn't take you too long to figure out from that whether or not it's peer reviewed. The way I would find that article to ensure that it's peer reviewed is I would run a search on the basis of author, just the author's name, and then I would tick the peer reviewed box and see what articles come up. And if that one does not come up under peer reviewed by that author's name, it's probably not peer reviewed. It's a matter of how you search, but if you search by the full title and author, you will come right to that article, and that doesn't tell you by itself whether it's peer reviewed. Then you have to assess the journal, look it up. And you can look them up. They should tell you whether or not they're a peer-reviewed journal. And you can figure it also out from the publisher of the journal. If it's Oxford Academic Journals that's published the journal, well, then it's going to be a peer-reviewed journal. So there are lots of clues. You just have to dig around to find out. It's a critical piece of information. You do need to look for it. The easiest way of finding it, though, is to do your search from the peer-reviewed tick box. Once you're doing that, you're pretty certain that what's going to come up is going to be peer-reviewed. Not certain. Things get by. But that's the best single way of ensuring it. So, start with the one piece of information, the author, and then click the tick box for peer review and see what articles come up. And if your article does not come up, then it's almost certainly not peer reviewed.
Professor, I have another question. You told that this article has volume 40, and
Yes.
you said this is an old, information is old. So how?
No, 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 no. I didn't say the information is old. I said the journal is old.
Okay, okay.
Okay, the journal has been publishing for 40 years. Now, that's not always true. There are journals that do not use an annual cycle for their volume numbers. That's rare, but there are a few out there. Some of the medical journals publish a volume a month because they're publishing so much material. But that's unusual case. You won't run into that. So volume 40 means this is the 40th year they have been publishing. And an established journal, it's like a friend of mine put together her own journal. She was a doctoral student at UBC and said we're missing articles in this area of research, and put together a journal. So her journal would have been publishing, and which is what happens for about 3 years. So you'd have volume 1, 2, and 3, and then it stopped because she ran out of the energy and she didn't have the money. Okay, so you had 3 volumes. Is it high quality? The answer is, it might be. There might be some really good articles in there. She's a brilliant scholar. She got together some really good people to submit, but there wasn't a lot of material. And so 3 volumes, not a good indication that there's a lot. If she had sold the rights to that journal to the UBC department, then the UBC whatever department would have carried it on and have published volumes 4, 5, 6, 7, and to whatever. And then you would have a good quality publisher, which is UBC, the university, and they would have picked it up. And that's actually how most journals get started. A scholar says, we need a journal in this area, and they start the work, and a university picks it up. And then ultimately, a university typically gives it over to a bigger publishing house, unless the university is big enough to have a good quality publishing house of its own. UBC does. A lot of the big universities, the Times ranked top universities, have their own publishing houses. But the smaller ones do not. And so then a journal would get moved over to, say, Oxford journals, or what's Green, that's another one. Anyway, there are a bunch of them. Wiley and Sons, the major publishing houses that publish academic journals. Now they're doing it to make some money, but they usually make it through direct subsidies, university publication grants, things like that. So they're not making it from the scholars themselves. That is, you do not pay to submit your articles, which is a critical piece of it. So you want high quality journals, ideally. Not just any. That's like, I don't know if this is a high quality journal that this article I just looked at is in. I would have to go research that journal. But there's so many other signs of good quality here. I'm not too worried about it. Any other questions? Does that answer your question, Navneet?
Yes, Professor. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions?
Yes, excuse me, Professor. I have a question.
Yep. Go ahead.
When I was doing this search about academic quality academic research, I read something about no all journal provides a peer review. I don't know if I understand it wrong, but there is a criteria for consider peer review. For example, some journal publish the research, but based on specialists, not any researchers or scholars.
Yeah.
The specialists give only opinion, which is an opinion from a specialist, which is good, but not totally credible in terms of academic research.
Yeah. So that is not a fully peer-reviewed journal. And there are a number of those out there. They're really interesting. They're very valuable to scholars who are at the leading edge of their field. They want to keep up on who's pushing out the edges. Research reports are just really valuable pieces of work. I'm proposing right now to write a research research report for a conference because I just don't have time to do the full article in before the conference. But they would love to know what I'm talking about. You know, it would really help them. And so it's valuable stuff. It's academically credible. Would you want to cite it? And the answer is you could, but you're a graduate student. You really don't know enough to know how to work with those effectively. So I would avoid them. You're looking more for the full peer-reviewed, published in an established journal kind of article, like this one that we just looked at. So yeah, you're not likely to run into too many of those, but they are there and they're worth reading. So if you're working on your MBA project and you can find an up-to-date research review, oh, it is so valuable to find out just where people are going now. So it's like everything that's published is valuable in some respects. The question is, in what way? How do you use it effectively? What is appropriate for somebody at your level of scholarship?
I understand. I mean, like, as an MBA student, we have our own backgrounds, right? So
Yep.
sometimes depends on what you are searching, you have an acknowledgement about that. You could be kind of a specialist in that subject.
Yep. Yep.
Also reinforce your understand with another journals from specialist opinions. So even if, and you providing this in your paper, it should be credible, could be credible.
Okay, yes.
Tough answer.
But how do I answer that one? You might be, well, at a certain level you are. You are the world's top scholar in your own life. Nobody knows more about you and your life than you. Any report that you give on your life is the best quality we are going to find of that topic. But to really, so look at this academic article we just looked at. One of the key pieces that defined it as a high quality academic article is not that they had done their own research, it's that they had positioned their research in relationship to all the other research. So that's that introductory material that is so important. So if you are, say, an expert in terms of the particular field of business in your country of origin, quite possible, it's still not valuable for you to talk about it until you have read and can position your work in relationship to everybody else's position. That is, it's really unfortunate in this certain sense because yes, you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about. The problem is it's not academic scholarship until it's positioned against all the other academic scholarship.
Okay.
So you could get there, but you don't start there. That is, your research might be brilliant and important, but until you've done all the homework, you don't get credibility. You just would not be seen as a credible source. An interesting source, absolutely. So you could probably write a research paper, but it wouldn't be a peer-reviewed paper, but it could be an introduction to the field that you've been working in, your review, your summary, but don't try to publish it as such, or it would just be published in a working papers volume, or it would be a conference presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Again, academically significant, but not a final peer-reviewed academic article, not a high-quality academic article. It's not that your work isn't high quality, it's that it doesn't have all the pieces necessary to define it as high quality academic work. It's like, this is a bit tricky. It's almost like a game where there are rules. It's not that you haven't done the right job, it's that there are certain rules that need to be followed in order to make sure everybody's happy.
Yeah, I know, yes.
Yeah, so it's kind of, yeah, you can do superb work. It's like, I think I do superb work. That doesn't mean everything I do gets past peer review, because it doesn't. And I get irritated by that. Because what I've found is academic journals are quite conservative. They don't want to publish stuff that really pushes the boundaries, and I push the boundaries far too far. So right now, I'm actually rethinking my publication strategy in terms of being more incremental in my approach. I don't like that because I don't actually do incremental work, but I have to think about how do I publish incrementally so I can get past that blockage of the conservativeness. That is, I think I do really high quality work, but that doesn't mean I can get it published. So I can publish working papers, I can publish to ResearchGate, I can present at conferences, but I have to rethink how I actually finalize those papers so that they can get published by tying them more closely to the existing bodies of research. Okay, I'll work on it. Takes time. My bigger problem is that I'm too interested in doing more research. I love research. I just love research. It's like there are two groups of people out there in the research field: those who like to do the research and those who like to write about research. The problem is people who like to write the research, not too many of them. There are those of us who are out there pushing it, and if I don't get a peer review passed on the first try, I don't care. I'm on to my next topic already. So nobody's ever going to find out what I have learned because I'm just too busy learning. I love learning. So I'm out there learning. Somebody else needs to come along and write up my material for publication or keep working at it until it finally gets published because I just don't care. I'm a researcher. So it's interesting stuff. It's an interesting world to work in.
Yeah, definitely interesting and very hard work.
That it is. Anyway, I want to, any other questions very briefly, because I want to move on to the last thing to think about here. Okay, so no other questions. Okay, here's the problem. So let me outline the problem that you face. Okay, so you've got my exercise that you've got to do. You've found an academic article of high quality like this one. What you have found is it doesn't say anything about the topic that you're interested in. That is an all too common outcome. How do you do all of this work and make it useful? That is, say you were not at all, okay, so here's your topic. You just did your business environment stakeholder mind map, ethics 1, okay, so that's coming up next week. What you were interested in is news media and how they report on business problems. That was your topic of interest. You didn't find that article. It might not exist. I mean, instead you found this article. So your topic of interest is how do news media report on business problems? And instead you found this article on the news media ecosystem for hyperlocal newspapers. How does that fit? The answer is it doesn't fit. So you have a choice. You can go back and continue looking for high quality academic articles. That's what too many students do. No, I do not want you to do that. You need to do something else. It's a little bit tricky. What you need to do is figure out, how do I apply this article to my research area? That is, having done all the work to find a high quality source, I then have a new job, which is how to take this material I have learned and apply it to my problem, even though it doesn't fit my topic. Okay, can be done, needs to be done. If you're going to be an efficient MBA student, this is exactly what you're going to do. Here's the way I look at it. You can do 20 minutes of research and then 20 minutes of research finding this, and then 20 minutes of hard thinking on how to apply it. Or you can spend 6 hours finding a paper that is exactly on the topic you want. So which would you prefer to do? 20 minutes of research plus 20 minutes of hard thinking, or 6 hours of not so hard thinking, but really droning research work trying to find the articles? If you're a good MBA student, you do 20 minutes plus 20 minutes. That's 6 hours you do not want to spend doing research for the perfect article. So how do you work with an imperfect article? How do you think through an imperfect article, but do it in 20 minutes? And the answer is, what you start thinking about is, for an article like this one, is, okay, my stakeholders include news media. That's what I really wanted to understand. But I ended up with this crazy article on hyperlocal businesses, news media, and how they're funded. Well, just hang on. Let me think. My case study was, say, Wells Fargo and their consumer fraud. How does these fit together? Well, here's the thing. These hyperlocal are often, I just noted in the research, one-person firms. That is, what I note here is one person can generate news media. Yeah, it's hyperlocal, but one person could cause us lots of problems. That is, if I represent Wells Fargo, I have to pay attention to every little hyperlocal individual if I'm going to manage our reputation. Yes, we made a mess of it. Yes, we want to talk to the news media. Apparently, conclusion, we need to explore all the hyperlocal sources, looking for what is often a single person operation, and learn how to reach out to them. All of a sudden, you've got a brilliant application of an article on a topic you never expected to do research on. So you see what I did? I spent time thinking this through. I have this article. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to think about, how do I figure out how to convince the economists to rethink our problem? That's what I'm interested in my case study. How do you get the big media to readjust? Well, yeah, okay, that was your interest. But now you've done some research. So now the question becomes, how do you apply your research? And that's it. You've done the research, you've found it. How do you apply it? Creative thinking, difficult thinking, yeah, so it's going to take you 20 minutes of very hard thinking to come up with the application. But that's only 20 minutes of very hard thinking versus 6 hours of very tough work finding an article that looks at how do the major news sources come to construct their news articles on business problems. An article which in fact may not exist. Once you start doing graduate level research, it's easy to discover that no one has ever written on your topic. There may be no articles, none, zero. So then you're stuck doing exactly this, which is applying what you've got, what you can find. So why not just work at applying what you can find rather than spending 6 hours not finding anything? So this is my advice. You take what you've got and you spend hard thinking time applying it to the topic in front of you. It can be done. Almost any piece of research you do can be applied back to your topic if you think about it hard enough, with a little bit of creativity. Just you have to think about it from a business point of view. And we could look at a number of articles. You'll figure this out, but it's and I'm not saying it's easy to do, because it is not easy to do, but it's only 20 minutes of hard thinking. So 20 minutes of research, 20 minutes of hard thinking, 20 minutes of writing it up. You spent 1 hour, as opposed to 6 hours of trying to find the right article that only takes 20 minutes to write up and apply. Well, which way do you want to go? Which is more efficient? So that's my last piece from this, is It does, as long as you have found high quality, stick to it. Do not go looking for other articles that are easier to work with. Learn the skill of applying what you've got. Almost anything can be applied to a business case if you think about it. Not everything. I mean, yeah, you may have found a really bad article in terms it's hard to understand how to make an application. But that's very rare, very, very rare. In my experience, students normally get close, but don't really make that connection. So I just want to say it's hard work. And I'm not trying to pretend it's easy, because it's not. But it's only 20 minutes of very hard work versus hours of hard work. And which is more effective? Your job is to get things done quickly. So I expect you to learn to apply what you've got as quickly as you can and move on. You're going to do this research exercise for week 4. You're going to look at it and you're going to say, it's going to take me days to do this. And it might, but I'll tell you this. By the end of this course, you're going to do 4 of these. The last one should take you between 2 and 4 hours to complete, period, from start to end. That is, it's just skills, and you're going to build the skills until you can think clearly, write effectively, and do the work. And it should be, I know it can be done because students have told me they have done it, 2 hours. Now that's a pretty bright student who really gets it. So 2 to 4 hours is how long it should take you to do one of these exercises, even though the first one might take you 2 days. 2 days of slogging work. But they really aren't that difficult once you have figured out the technique that's involved. It's not that they are impossible. It's just new skills. It's like learning to ride a bicycle. You fall off and it hurts the first few times. Then you get it and you're going, well, I don't get this. And what's the problem? This is easy. And that's exactly what happens with these. They start off tough, they get easier. We'll talk about that next week. We'll talk about the exercise itself. But right now, all I want you to do is to know what is high academic quality and how do you find it. So we have 2 minutes left. Any last questions before we leave today?
Professor, I have a question about the yesterday you had a workshop.
Yes.
Where could I found recorded?
You can't yet because I have to convert it and put it up on YouTube.
Oh.
And I have to do that for the video for today's session of this morning as well. Well, that's going to be one huge file. I just don't know how I'm going to manage it, but I'll do my best.
Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be there and I'll post a note once it's up. I might not get it up till tomorrow. Any other questions? 1 minute left.
Yes, Professor, quickly,
Yes.
this academic research tool, it's optional or mandatory?
Oh, the second exercise, it's completely up to you. If you're happy with your grade, don't bother.
Okay.
It is completely optional. I mean, put it this way, if you scored 35 out of 50, doing it again, you might have the chance to get a score of 40 out of 50. Well, 39.5 out of 50. That's the maximum score I will give it, a B plus grade. That is, I think if to get an A, you need to be able to do it on your first pass. But I don't actually recommend A grades anyway. Nobody should get an A grade. In my course, if you get a full, just A grades on everything, you're working too hard. You're just working too hard. Don't do it. Slack off. Spend your time on other things. B plus, that's the aim. So you might get an A on one assignment and a B on another. Just aim for B plus. That's efficient. So if you're really smart, be sloppy. Just move through it.
Okay. Thank you, Professor.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Everybody wants an A. No. I really feel guilty about that. You shouldn't want an A. You should only want a B. That's efficient. You're graduate students in a business program. Be efficient. Last question, Rebecca.
Oh, sorry. Hi. I just wondering because I got less than 10. So it's possible I made it again?
If you did not get a good enough grade on the first academic research exercise, do the new one that's posted and it will replace your grade.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we are done for today. I hope this has been helpful. We can talk about this material again next week. We actually have some really interesting material to discuss next week. It's a fun discussion. I think it's next week. I think those are the ethics case studies next week. So we're just moving through material very quickly. If you feel like things are moving at a blurry, fast pace, that is in fact correct. We are moving through this course very, very quickly. It slows down at the end. But for the first half, we are covering an enormous amount of complex material very quickly. So if you're not understanding everything, yeah, you're not understanding everything. It's just too much. But by the end of the course, I hope you have a better grasp. We will have slowed down and have a chance to kind of review. It's a course where there is so much to learn at the beginning so that you can learn to work with the material and apply it. And so I'm pushing you along. Yes, this is rushed. Yes, it's too fast. Yeah, it's just the way it is. You'll survive. And by the end of the course, you'll have a pretty good grasp. So I will leave it there. I'll say goodbye. I'm going to stop sharing and stop recording.
Me, just the last quickly question.
Yeah.
Or teen worksheet, where do you find this worksheet? I'm looking the page in the Moodle, but I didn't find a model.
Team web page should be, sorry, the team assignment page. The
worksheet one.
Did I not post the worksheet?
I didn't find it.
Group assignment, Business 601, Summer 201, Worksheet 1, listed under week 3 under assignments.
Week 3. That is a Word document,
yes.
Group assignment, and it's into this. Let me check.
Yeah.
But that is not a worksheet. It's only orientations. That is not a model, I mean.
Let me take a look at what I posted. Oh, it's the guidelines, not the worksheet itself.
Exactly.
What did I do? Hang on. No, hang on. Field research. No, that's it. That is it. It's the guidelines. It tells you exactly what to do. And so you just provide your list.
Oh, we can make our own list.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. All right. Thank you, Professor.
Yeah. Okay, I will say goodbye then and